Perfect.
I'm with Alistair Banks Griffin. We've been promoting your film way before the festival. We included you in our top 100 films to see, and we had a really cool profile on you. And I'm really happy to get a chance to speak to you about a fantastic film. One among my favorite films of the 2010 Cannes edition. Basically, maybe we can start off by how was that experience, the first screening, the tense moments prior to the film actually showing on screen. Maybe you can just resume that nutty day for you, your first day.
I really had I had such a huge build up to the moment of the screening, because we were doing press, and we do the press conference actually before the big gala screening, and just went totally bananas trying to get ready, and I actually was completely unprepared for the screening. I walked in not realizing that was about to happen, because I didn't have a sense of time or anything, and walked in, and the screening went beautifully. We had an incredible projection, and I think somewhere about halfway through the movie I realized kind of where I was and what was happening, and got really emotional, and my mother was sitting next to me, and we had a real intense connection throughout the rest of the film, and the film ended, and there's nothing you can prepare you for the feeling of when the lights come up and people actually haven't all left the cinema, and you have a crowd of people that seem to like what you've done, and it was an insane moment, because we had to do our Camera d'Or. They have a special ceremony for the Camera d'Or for the 25 films or so that are eligible.
Which this year actually was extremely heavy on the new films. I mean, in certain regard, and especially the director's Fortnight, Frederic added maybe half of his slate was newbie directors.
Totally.
And I think that was a really cool modification, if you will. Absolutely. For this year.
Well, they managed to schedule. We managed to have our screening right at the moment. The ending of our screening right at the moment where I was supposed to be on the red carpet for the walk the directors through, and so we had a motorcycle arranged and all that. So I literally ran out of my screening, had to put on a helmet, and was flown down the Croisette, and then rushed into the thing, just heart pumping, going totally mad. And they walked me down the red carpet, and you come up through this thing, and you can either walk into the screening or you walk out, and I had to walk out, and I walked out into nothing and nobody, and after all this kind of intense energy, and I literally had a panic attack, and I was having a hard time breathing, and I didn't quite know what I was doing, and didn't know where I was supposed to go, and all of a sudden, and I just found myself kind of walking around aimlessly until my parents found me miraculously, and I had a good half an hour of really not knowing exactly how to feel, and then literally half an hour later, I was just on cloud nine, and my head exploded, and it was great.
Before hitting the plane, I was curious to know what were some of the last preparations on the film that you had done. Was the score one of the later things?
No, ironically, the score was coming in really early on the early cuts. I have a really great shorthand with my composer Sonia Urians and Denny Benzi, and they had been. We've done a lot of projects together, so I feel very comfortable with them. And he knows kind of what I want most of the time. And we have the same taste in music, and I work on films. So I've done their music videos for their band, Priestbird, and so we just have a great relationship. And I would say the last minute things were much more in color and sound design, and I wanted to make sure I had an incredibly well-designed film in terms of sound, and so we went the extra mile, and we were rushing to finish that stuff at the last second. And I think the last element that came in per se was the subtitles, which are much more difficult than we would ever imagine.
And in this case, subtitles, they're. I mean, out of all the films and the directors, out of all the films in the director's Fortnight, it's probably the one that's the most mum. Can you discuss that aspect of your film, the fact that there's not a lot of dialogue, and I think that you're working with a lot of the imagery in order to advance the narrative, the chosen narrative. Maybe discuss that strategy.
It was incredibly important for me to try to tell a story through mise-en-scène and in particular the type of performative technique that we were experimenting with, which has been present in cinema for quite a while, where you deconstruct the performances to a place where actors are not emoting or doing much in terms of facial gesture, which is actually a really challenging thing to keep an eye on, as well as for the actors to do. And when you restricting this motion, you find that when that happens, then the tiniest little eye twitch or gesture becomes monumental and speaks scores. And I was really interested in being able to tell the story that way. And I love, I'm a big fan of Faulkner and Malick, and they have these grandiose poetic overture narratives, and I wanted to try to accomplish that without having to utilize that device. And I think it's successful in some ways, and I do feel like the story moves forward.
I love the opening shot. The opening shot where they're just puffing away and contemplating something that might have occurred beforehand and are contemplating what they're going to be doing next.
You can see this moment where, Brady, the character that Brady Corbet plays, steps up and turns the light off while he's still sitting there. You can just see it's kind of a dick move. Mm-hmm. It sets the stage for this this brotherly dynamic that they have, which we really... we had a lot of that on paper, and then we had a lot more written in terms of narrative in terms of dialogue, and I just felt like at a certain point those things just weren't necessary, and some of them we shot, some of them we didn't, and I felt like at the end of the day, the more I could cut out, the better, and that's how it went.
The thing that struck me, my personal viewing experience was every shot was sublime. I was just melting in my seat. I was like, holy shit, I can't believe I'm seeing this. I can't believe I'm watching this. The way you do setup shots, the way you do just the frame itself, it was just an interesting watch. I was wondering what kind of planification went into that. When they're moving upriver, let's say, how do you decide on establishing? How did that rhythm? How did you create that rhythm? Because it's very specific. It's very
moving through the river.
Yeah, of moving through the river. Because at one point, you have Brady coming in through the very left bottom portion of the screen. It's a far away shot, and then
I specifically tried to. I know I spent my childhood in this region and a good bit, and I know the environment extremely well. So what I tried to do was progress the story through the way I knew that the landscape could get bigger and bigger, essentially, and start swallowing them up. And I worked a lot with our cinematographer Jody Lee Lipes to kind of make these frames that were so specific. Like we'd look for a specific tree and a specific branch arrangement, a specific log, like all those things were. We didn't just randomly shoot in the
No,
forest
of course not.
Means. It was like, when you don't have a budget for production design, which we actually had an incredible production designer who, Kris Moran, who had done After School for Antonio Campos, who's the executive producer on the project, and I'd just been blown away by her resourcefulness. But at a certain point, you realize you have to match. If you're shooting in an environment, you have to find these things to look like production designers, and they're like crafted in the same way. And so we're hyper conscious when Jody and I were walking around. We had these long walks in the forest together in pre-production, and really, carefully.
The shots look technically extremely complicated. The traveling shots. There's some crazy stuff going on, and even the more secluded scenes at the very beginning of the film when they're both on their hunt. How do you handle it? How do you go about that? Is it?
To be honest, I wanted to shoot a lot more than I needed, and honestly, I probably. I would have loved to have an entire shoot just to shoot that opening scene. I would love to have 30 days just to do that opening hunt sequence. But I think what happens is you just set up enough scenarios, and one thing we talked about a lot was establishing the shooting styles very early on. All the shooting styles we were going to use throughout the film very early on, which was like very much a combination of shooting techniques. And when to do the forest stuff, I knew it needed to be very formalistic in the beginning, and then as it moves along, it obviously starts getting looser and more chaotic. And there's a lot of stuff on the cutting floor that didn't work, and some stuff that just the rhythm was basically it was crafted in the editing room more than anything. We just shot a ton of that footage and really tried to find the places where the dolly would. It was very much important for me that everything kept moving left to right constantly. So that was a very specific thing that you knew they were traveling like this. It wasn't going to be like this.
You get a strong sense of that. Perhaps discuss your casting. Not only the three leads, but I thought you did an interesting bit with. I think it was a pair of actors that visit Brady and David's characters, and yet you keep them completely out of the shot.
Are you talking about the doctor scene? Wait,
I think I'm talking about the scene where they're being visited by people within the family. Is it a doctor?
Yeah, it's a doctor.
Okay.
Well, I'm not even sure if I clarify that in the movie or not. But I love the idea that we introduce a character that you can only see in the mirror. And in the shadow, you see him through silhouette at the end of the shot. And, this is a great character actor named Richie Montgomery. We do have our reverses of that stuff. We have our coverage, and seeing him in the frame just felt like it was like moving out of the realm of where I wanted the audience to be with these guys. There's this conscientious effort that you were kind of experiencing it as one of the brothers, or like as one of them in a way. And, like that's why I was so excited about that opening scene too, because you literally feel like you're sitting in the
you have a chair pulled up.
Very voyeuristic, and I think it moved a little bit beyond an average opening shot in that regard, which is it's tough to open a film with a 6-minute static shot. You got to keep people's attention.
And how difficult is it to get Karen on board for the project?
Karen was the easiest part of the whole thing. Yeah, we really saw the gambit for David's character. I had something so specific in mind that I wasn't finding, and David walks in on the last day and just blew us all away. We couldn't believe not only the similarity, but his talent as an actor. And, his stoicism was just matching Brady, and he has a real incredible vulnerability. With Karen, she came in and she had seen the short we had done a few years before, and she was the easiest part.
Great.
Her and I had a conversation, and
it was a done deal.
Love fest from the beginning.
And I'll end it off by asking you what's in store with this film, Two Gates of Sleep. What are your hopes for it, and perhaps maybe discuss a little bit what your next projects would be or are going to be.
I think my biggest ambition, my largest ambition with this project was to be coming here to Cannes and achieving that. Feels almost like I'm not quite sure how we can top that. But I'm really excited at the fact that I feel like the film will have a life and it's going to travel to a few other festivals that we already know about, and I would love for this to come to the U.S. and have people see it. It's a small and difficult film.
Would you say that your previous short was your calling card for you in a way, or
more or less? I mean, by the first screening of that film got me connected with the producers Andrea Renzi and Josh Mond and Borderline Films, and so it was like kind of weird. I haven't thought of it like a calling card because I only needed to show it once to have this whole kind of crazy thing happen with Borderline and Andrea Renzi, and it was like a whirlwind dream. I mean, we met and we're making this film within, I think, 4 or 5 months.
That's a great team. Borderlines is a great unit.
We all have an incredible mutual respect for each other's tastes, and we all have very different tastes too, which is great. And but there is like this core thing between all of us, and Brady's a filmmaker as well, and I think I'm really excited that I was let into their circle, so to speak, and it's a very tight circle to have penetrated. But in terms of future projects, I'm really it's a really daunting thing to think about. And
I was going to ask you, how do you write? When are you you do like 5 hours a day at home? I mean, how do you, for a film that's strong on visuals, and yeah, I mean, how do you go about writing?
My writing process is extremely slow and arduous, and I find it kind of find the writing process to be really my least favorite aspect. Though I am meticulous about it. Like I rewrite, and I tend to disappear for long periods of time.
Do you focus on place setting and characters?
Yeah, I think almost always location is the first thing I look for, and build around that, because it's what interests me most. Cool. And that's the same with the future projects I'm thinking about.
Great.
Location based.
Well, thank you very much. Been a pleasure meeting you in person, and I'm looking forward to seeing where this film is going to go. I'm very hopeful that I'll reach out, and especially at the bigger festivals in North America this fall. So best of luck to you.